Okay, folks, welcome back to 3 Zen. This story is actually the back end of a outback I had with General Svensson to Navy Dallas one day, actually 2 days. I was his CNI instructor pilot for the trip. So we get ready to come back to Randolph, and it is just raining cats and dogs at Randolph. Low ceilings, and just the weather was really dicey. We had a couple alternates, but they were pretty far away, and so it was one of those deals where we had one shot at the runway, and then we're going to have to divert. And General Svensson really wanted or needed to get back to Randolph, so that's kind of the setup that we had when we departed Navy Dallas. So we get down to Randolph, and indeed the weather was right at minimums. Low ceiling, fog, rainy weather, heavy water on the runway, and not good. Now, I was pretty impressed with the way General Swenson flew. I enjoyed flying with him, and he was a very good pilot. So I was very comfortable with him flying the approach. So we get all set up, and we start down final approach down the glide slope, and he asked, now Bob, he says, do we aerobrake on a wet runway in the 38? And I don't know why I said this. I said, no, sir, we just put the airplane down and gingerly get on the brakes and bring it to a stop. He said, okay. So we break out of the weather, pick up the runway, and he lands within the first 1,000 feet. And then he puts the airplane, the nose down, and commences braking. Well, during that transition there, I literally felt that airplane rise, and I'm convinced today it rose up on the standing water. And as he got on the brakes, we began sliding. We slid a little bit to the right at first, and we came back. He got it straight, and maybe a little bit to the left, but nowhere near as much as that to the right. And he managed to keep control of it going down the runway. During that time, I felt first the right wing dip a little bit, and then I felt the left wing dip. Okay, fine, that doesn't feel good. He was slowing the aircraft, but not normally. I'm watching the runway feet remaining markers go by, like 4,000 and 3,000, 2,000. And we continued to slow, but not as much, not at the rate I really would have liked to have seen. But he eventually got it stopped about 800 feet from the runway, from the end of the runway, and he started to add power to taxi off. Well, I just popped the canopy, looked out at the left and right wheels, and they were flat. Crap. So I called Tower and said, hey, Tower, we're going to have to stop here. I said, we've got 2 flat tires. And General stopped the airplane, and I said, I'm sorry about that, General. And he didn't say anything. Okay, fine. So I called back to the SOF and said, Copperhead, this is tunnel such and such. And he said, yeah, Bob. He said, we saw you sliding by. Okay, fine. He says, Dick O'Grady, the squadron commander, is on his way out. And I says, is he bringing 2 new tires with him? And then I thought, don't say things like that. Just let that kind of float. Okay, fine. So Colonel O'Grady comes out. I'm a major at this time, General Svensson. So we hop down off the airplane, hop back into the car. He takes us back to the squadron. We get to the squadron. The general gets in his staff car and takes off. And Dick O'Grady said to me, Bob, he says, why don't you go ahead and hang up your chute and your helmet and then come in and tell me what happened. I said, yes, sir. So it was at that time I'm getting my coffee and I'm thinking to myself, there's only 2 people that in that airplane knows what happened. And I doubt if Colonel O'Grady's going to interrogate the general. That's just not going to happen. So I thought about some kind of story, and I thought, you know what, why not just tell them the truth? And that's what I did. So I walked in, and Colonel O'Grady was so gracious to me. I still remember that. And he says, okay, Bob. He says, tell me what happened. I said, well, I screwed up, sir. How's that? So I told him, I said, General Svensson asked me, he said, about aerobraking on a wet runway. And I said, I was so concerned with everything going on. I said, I told him the wrong thing. He did what I kind of told him to do. Okay. And that was that. He said, well, Bob, he said, I really appreciate your honesty here. And he said, we just appreciate it. He said, now I have one other question for you. And I said, okay. He said, who made the initial takeoff on the day before? Well, what had happened the day before, General Svensson was doing the flying, and we got strapped in the jet, and they had a couple of colonels out there with bricks and standing there to wave goodbye to us. We taxied out, and he did the takeoff. Well, when he took off, instead of climbing out like we normally do, he gets airborne and levels that thing. And I'm not so sure we didn't go down a little bit. But anyway, we were just really dusting the runway off. I have never been that fast, that low in my life like that. Was it fun? Oh yeah, it was fun. But anyway, we go smoking down the runway and then pull up and then head on our way. And so Colonel Grady says, who made that takeoff? And I said, well, sir, let me put it this way. It wasn't me. He said, well, he says, I didn't think so. He says, we've been having problems with General Svensson like that. And he says, I just want to thank you for being up front with me about the landing and so forth. He says, thanks for coming in. Okay, fine. So I go back to the office. When I get back to the office, I get another cup of coffee, and I'm thinking about all this. And finally, about noon, 1 o'clock comes around. I was chewing on it, bottling it up. So I called General Secretary Mary Duckworth. I had known her for years. So I called Mary and I said, does the general have any time this afternoon? I'd like to come up and chat with him a little bit. And she says, yeah, come on up now. She says, he doesn't have anything on his calendar right now. So I went up, and Mary told the general I was there to see him. So he looks up from his desk and he says, well, hi, Bob. He said, you come up to chew my ass out for the takeoff? And I said, no, sir. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I wouldn't do it anyway. But I said, I would like to talk with you a little bit about it. I said, I got to thinking about it, and I wondered how would I have handled it if anybody else had done that. And I said, probably talk to him. He said, well, I appreciate you coming up. He said, did that little red-headed squadron commander send you up? I said, no, sir. I said, I'm here on my own. He said, well, I appreciate it, Bob. He says, and that was all that was. We chatted a little bit more and then went on our way. I did like flying with General Svensson. Guy had a great sense of humor. He was a good pilot. I just didn't need all that other stuff that sometimes came along with it. Good to see everybody. Oh, before I go, I want to show you something. I left the safety division a couple months later, in July. Well, when I left at my going away party, the guys in the squadron gave me this nice set of bookends. This one here and this one here. There we go. They were from the tires of that incident. And it's really kind of remarkable. Here you can see the hole. You can see where the rubber burned down and ends up with this hole here. And you can't see it too well on the video. But I'll hold that up a little bit here. Right here, you can see where the water came up and it burned on both sides. It's on both sides of the tire. It actually burned through the rubber on the sides of it. So anyway, I have that nice little reminder of that ride that day with General Svensson. The tag has fallen off, but what it said was, the next time, General, I'll brief on aerobraking. Swell. Good to see everybody.